Ever wondered what it's like to work in the apparel and fashion industry in Chicago? Listen in as we chat with experts across a variety of roles and get insight into their jobs and career paths.
Balodana has two distinct business models. When we started, we launched Balodana.com in 2019, and that is a consumer-facing marketplace. What that means is we're kind of like a tiny little specialized Etsy, where we are a marketplace. We represent makers. Consumers find us, they shop online, and they scan themselves to get their body measurements, or they manually enter their body measurements. And then our manufacturers create those on demand and made directly for the body measurements and then ship them to that consumer. So that is, as far as I know, we are the only marketplace, certainly in the United States, and I think only one of two in the whole world that has that model, which is explicitly devoted to women's custom made to measure clothing via e-commerce. Very unusual. So we spent 5 years building up the customer experience, getting repeat customers, and learning from that process. What do women want? What do they need? How do we make this easier for them? Because in America, women don't buy custom clothes unless they're getting married. It's very unusual here, quite unusual. Unlike other countries where it might be more easy to find or more common, it's considered a special thing here for women. So what we learned there enabled us to launch the next wave of the business last year, which is the Custom Fashion Lab. Custom Fashion Lab is, to my knowledge, again, the only one that I've seen where we'll be plugging directly into e-commerce experiences. So let's say you go on to a Madame LaFleur who sells very classic women's tailored looking garments, but their sizes may not fit every body. So next to their small, medium, and large will be the button that says, make my size. And then from that, we'll actually create the garments on demand precisely to that consumer's. Same thing that we're doing at Balodana, but we're replicating it now on other people's websites. And for that, we're supplying not just the technology, but the actual manufacturing arm and the shipping and fulfillment to drop ship that directly in. So we call it personalized supply chain. So we're not replacing their existing mass manufacturing, we're just sitting on top of it to provide that gravy. From our research, we've found that about 25% of women of any body type and shape are not finding what they need most of the time. So that means there is a potential 25% lift for any brand to integrate this type of technology. We launched Balodana.com in 2019, and we had a pretty significant growth year that year, and moving into 2020, we were pretty heavily impacted by pandemic, as you might imagine, because we sell fancy clothes and nobody wore anything but pajamas for about 2 years. But we are back on track, thank God, with the consumer side of things growing, and I think we're seeing our sales, we doubled our sales last year over prior, and this year we're looking good for a continued growth. In our Custom Fashion Lab, this is our newbie, we're doing a different way of approaching customer development. So we're doing direct sales, meeting people face to face, going to trade shows. So it's a little slower to engage, but the growth is higher on the back end. So for example, we are now on our probably 8th round of custom uniforms for one of our clients and continuing to grow. So the reorders go and go. We're definitely at a 4x growth on our commercial side over last year. I could never have imagined at the beginning of Balodana concepting this out where we were going to be today. Never. I guess I can thank the pandemic for that, for a pivot. I also never thought that I'd have relationships in, a dozen countries. And no, it's been a discovery process all the way along. We knew we wanted to make clothes made to measure. We didn't really know how because it had never been done. So we just had to figure it out as we went along. So we've had any number of changes as we went, and the new opportunities presented themselves. It's feeling around in the dark with a lot of patience, skill, and investment. I wear all the hats except the coding. I can't code. I'm a non-coding tech founder, but And I try not to be a total bottleneck on everything. So I do have a great team. I'm not going to claim I do everything, but I dabble in everything because you have to. Like when you're a small business, you have to be on top of absolutely everything. So yeah, that means it's very unglamorous. When we were doing the consumer-facing stuff, yeah, I was the one schlepping the samples out to the weekend artisan market and talking to people and getting to know customers. So that helps me though. I understand more about what they need and I get to have those very important conversations. I'll be with the tech team debugging all day. So yeah, I've got my hands in everything. I think the only thing I really, like I said, don't do personally is code. I'm lucky that my business is a virtual one because while I do have, you can come out to our boutique. It's boutique, my condo. We have an area set up with some rack samples that customers can come and try things on, and we can have consultations. But because we're moving more towards the business side of things, that retail footprint or that face-to-face doesn't matter as much because the customers that I'm working with are typically across the country and then the vendors are around the world. So I don't actually need a lot of that. I need my computer and that's about it. It's pretty simple. So one of the things I mentioned earlier is the unique about us, not just in terms of how we're manufacturing, but our whole business model is unique. In most of the garment industry, it's a very traditional, buy it cheap, sell it high, discount it somewhere in between. But because we are trying to push a completely different methodology altogether, not just in terms of production, but also how you sell it, we have to make this profitable. So for us, we have a very different business model. We are not doing a traditional wholesale to resale model. What we do instead is actually, it's almost like a partnership, where revenue sharing with each one of our business customers. So the pricing that you see on our consumer facing on Balodana.com, I don't set those prices. Our makers set those prices. I take my commission, they keep the rest. That allows them to pay their people better, to use higher quality materials, and to keep investing in their businesses. On the B2B side of things, we're working right now primarily with one of our partners in India. So we partner very closely and very transparently with our brand customers on what that breakdown looks like. We work together on what's the retail cost going to look like, what do we need that wholesale price to come in at together, and then we're supporting that. And basically, we're writing checks to the brand instead of the brand writing checks to us. They pay for the upfronts, and after that, we're producing and then sending them the money. In our business, communication is absolutely critical, and especially because it's virtual, like I'm not touching the samples myself, we have to make sure that we are over communicating at all times. So when I'm working with one of our brand partners, I'll be working with them through email, through WhatsApp, through text, through phone, through Zooms, you name it. We're going to be doing a lot of communication to understand their needs. And then on the flip side, I'm going to be mostly on WhatsApp with our India team. And we also do a lot of phone calls, video calls. And then we're communicating with sketches and spreadsheets and video calls in between. And as we're doing that physical sampling and then anything beyond that. So it's very critical also that we create contracts and things. So it's really interesting to me in this industry. Like, again, I come from tech, so I'm like, there are people who have their whole operations running entirely on a handshake. And that's not the way I operate. So I want to make sure that we've got clear contracts in place, that we're managing those deliverables and those expectations at all times so people don't get hurt on either side. Because if you let it go and just be too like, sure, let's casual or whatever, someone's going to get hurt. And what you don't want to do is have your clients miss their deadlines or their needs, or burn a source, with our factory, because we've actually had clients who didn't follow the rules and found themselves unable to work with us because we're just not going to work with clients who won't follow a communications process that is respectful and timely along the way. Scanners, and then trying to create parametric patterns out of those for a pair of trousers. And we've just tried on our first pair of finished trousers. They were a disaster. We knew they were going to be because we knew this doesn't work yet. Things never work until they do. Technology. That's most of my world is technology.
Conversation about me?
About Kat's butt.
About my butt?
Your butt, your thighs, your everything.
and the pants.
And it wasn't about you. It was about
No, it was about my
yeah, it was
pants.
totally about the pants. And they were so, because remember, it's like a pack of monkeys on this thing. They're all like, they were the ones who engineered the patterns. They knew what to expect, but it was still so interesting to see it. We'd seen it in 3D.
Oh, yeah.
We had never seen it on a human yet.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting. They were also really mad that I used stretch fabric.
Well,
it was an accident.
Yeah, I think you said that it wasn't even your choice.
It only had 3%, but it was enough.
It's enough.
It's enough.
1% is enough.
Yeah, it was enough.